There is this very common question: what is my spiritual awakening going to do for me? What is the benefit of spiritual awakening? And you see, for that, one has to really understand what spiritual awakening is. Now, my notion of spirituality is that through the happening of life events, through the suffering that we face in daily living, the suffering of finances, work, emotions, relationships, and so on, there is an inquiry which begins. And this inquiry is into the meaning of life. What is the meaning of life? So, one gets absorbed into this quest to find what life is all about. Why am I here? What is all this? What is this world? And there is this question deep within that once I figure out life and how life works, then somehow I will be comfortable. That I will be free from this pain, from this cycle of pain and pleasure. Now, this is what the general concept of spirituality is. But in my case, what has happened is that this inquiry started just like others, but eventually there was no conclusion about anything. And what I came to know, now it's not a conclusion, but it's a realization. And there's a difference between the two, because the conclusion is born out of a thought, and realization is never a personal thing. So the realization happened that the one seeking the meaning of life is an illusion. Now, this is something very hard for the mind to conceptualize. The sense of personal identification just dropped. And when the sense of personal identification drops, what drops along with it is all the questions about life, about meaning, about purpose. All those questions also start dissolving. Now, it's not that this sense of personal identification or me, that it completely vanishes, that it's completely killed. That's not the thing. It's just that the solidness of this entity, personal entity, me, that solidness is broken. I mean, I still have to live in the world. I still have to operate. I still have to speak to other people. There will be, there will be transactions of different kind. There will be conflicts of different kind. So, what spiritual awakening, or I prefer to use the term insight or understanding, what it brought was that there is no need for this individual entity that thinks of itself as real to decondition itself. The deconditioning simply happens through the process of understanding. Because the moment I try to decondition through effort, through vigilance, that very action keeps the separate entity alive. You see, it is the fantasy of ego to destroy itself. Because the ego sees the concept of ego as separate from itself, whereas it is not different. That is why the masters say that the true awakening happens when this seeking ends. And that does not mean that you are free from the cycle of pain and pleasure. Because Buddha clearly said that samsara and nirvana are one and the same. There is no nirvana outside of the samsara. It has to be found here in this life, in the flow of life, in the uncertainty and everything. So, if you are expecting that spiritual awakening will just eliminate suffering and keep us in a state of perpetual bliss, where everything is perfect, that all our flaws will just drop away instantly, then that is a delusion of the ego mind. There is no such thing as the perfect human being, because nature has not intended human beings to be that way. So I say that spiritual awakening does absolutely nothing. Nothing with a capital N. The entity, the separate entity, me, that I identify, it just keeps on doing its thing. It keeps on fantasizing about progress, about spiritual attainment, about enlightenment, or some form of self-improvement. But that is just the part of story in duality. But that said, spiritual awakening does bring a sense of relief. Because, as I mentioned earlier, when the solidness of this separate entity me is not there, then what happens in the moment does not stick to it and becomes a story. So that offers a relief, because you don't blame yourself for what unpleasant things happen in your life, because you don't see life as a happening to you. You see life simply as a happening. So you you operate with an understanding. The ego is still there, and it will always be there till we are alive. But it operates with an awareness, with an understanding that it is not the doer, and that the things simply happen. So our tendency to take things personally, that drops away slightly. Now, in some people, it may not be that strong. That means some people still get affected by things that are happening around. And that's okay. Once it is understood that there is no me, even that is seen as a happening. So, I'll give you my example. There are certain days when I do feel some sort of emotional turbulence. While most of the days are peaceful, there are days when I experience emotional upheavals. And that is the time when I generally isolate myself and just sit, with whatever content I'm experiencing, with whatever sensations I'm experiencing. And slowly, I allow that energy to dissolve. But what happens is that there is no thinking about what is happening, because there is no me that takes ownership of those emotional spikes that I experience. So I go into the depth of all sensations, and see what exactly is happening. And if you do that, what you will find is there actually is no location to any sensation. It simply arises and it disappears after some time. Yes, you may feel symptoms in certain locations, like for example, anger is felt in the gut, and sometimes anxiety is felt here in the throat. Those symptoms may be there. Those physical symptoms may be there, but there is no concrete entity. There is no me, the person that is actually experiencing those emotions, those sensations. It simply comes up in awareness, plays in awareness, and disappears in awareness. That means it is not separate from the awareness. And that itself, I believe, is a tremendous relief, because we have accepted that the cycle of pain and pleasure cannot be eliminated, that it is a feature of life. So we don't have a fight with ourselves that I'm not there yet, that I should be like this or be like that, I should do this, I should not do that. All that process of becoming and unbecoming and trying to be a better person, a better human being, better this, better that, all those things begin dissolving. Betterment is it's a process. Any organism that repeats certain action starts becoming proficient in that. That's a byproduct. But there is no central agency here claiming ownership or creating pride that I have improved, because that is just a part of story. A couple of people, there are people who do lots of meditation, and I have done this myself, lots of meditation, and then they think that they are somehow above the forces of life. So, when they encounter one or two situations where some trigger happens and they're able to control themselves, they think that they have progressed. And then one incident happens where they just lose it, where they go completely out of control, berserk. And then they create so much negativity for themselves. I did so much effort, I did so much meditation, and look at me now. Everything is out of the window. All my effort is in the drain. What is the point of all this? That is how the ego mind works. So it is not about vigilantly trying to decondition yourself or trying to peel the layers around your personality. It is simply seeing the conditioning. When the conditioning is seen, it automatically starts becoming irrelevant, because it is seen that everything is happening in pure awareness. And what is happening in pure awareness is not separate from it. So there is the experience, there is the experiencing, but there is no experiencer of anything. There is the observing, but there is no individual observer of anything. And this insight, which is not a product of the worldly knowledge, this insight simply comes through by allowing for the total vision. So, the masters say that it happens through grace. So allowing for that simply brings about the insight, and in the insight, the conditioning is revealed, and what is seen dissolves without the individual trying to do anything about it. And that is what there is to spiritual awakening, in my opinion. Other than that, there is no worldly benefit that I see.